Dr. Varnish Kol'thorian had taught galactic history for 43 cycles at the Meridian Institute. And in all that time, he had never once doubted his expertise. His scales, a distinguished deep purple that marked him as a Valtorian scholar of the highest order, gleamed under the lecture hall's ambient lighting as he gestured dramatically at the holographic display. And so, he announced to his class of 212 students, "We arrive at the most fascinating mystery in our galactic record, the erasure." The amphitheater was packed with species from across the known sectors. Chittering insectoids sat beside crystalline lumens, while gaseous nephri floated in their containment spheres near the upper rows. It was the diversity of the Meridian Institute that made it prestigious. And Dr. Kol'thorian never tired of reminding his students of this fact. He pulled up a star map, highlighting a small region in what humans would have called the Orion Arm. 2,000 years ago, this sector was home to what the Council termed a Tier 3 emerging species. They called themselves. He paused, checking his notes, humans. Remarkable, really. For all the wrong reasons. A few students leaned forward with interest. The erasure was always a popular topic. The humans were remarkable, Kol'thorian continued, warming to his subject, because they achieved rudimentary space travel despite having no natural evolutionary advantages whatsoever. No armored carapace. No venomous defenses. No psionic abilities. They were, by all biological metrics, wholly unremarkable prey animals who somehow stumbled into sentience. He advanced the display, showing what appeared to be a pre-spaceflight human city. But here's where it gets interesting. The humans were volatile. Aggressive. They waged war constantly. Not for resources. Not for territory. But for abstract concepts. Religion. Ideology. Pride. He shook his head, scales rippling with something like pity. The Council observed them for 3 centuries and came to a unanimous conclusion: humanity would either destroy itself or become a threat to galactic stability. "What happened?" asked a young Dracienne in the front row, her tentacles coiled with anticipation. "They destroyed themselves," Kol'thorian said simply. The last confirmed sighting of human activity was 1847 years ago. Their homeworld, they called it Earth, went dark. No transmissions. No ships. Nothing. When the Council finally sent a survey team 2 centuries later, they found a dead world. Atmospheric collapse. Nuclear winter. The classic signs of self-annihilation. He closed the hologram with a flourish. The humans were the deadliest species in that sector. And their deadliness was so profound that they turned it inward. They are extinct. And frankly, students, the galaxy is safer for it. This is why the Council now requires all Tier 3 species to undergo mandatory observation and intervention protocols. We learned from humanity's mistakes. The lecture hall buzzed with conversation. Dr. Kol'thorian smiled, pleased with himself. This was always the part where students realized the importance of the Council's work. The necessity of. A hand went up. It was in the middle section, 5 rows back. Dr. Kol'thorian almost missed it because the person raising it was small, unassuming, and had been so quiet all semester that he'd nearly forgotten she was enrolled. "Yes," he said, somewhat irritably. He preferred questions at the end of lectures, not during his dramatic conclusions. The student stood. She was bipedal, short by galactic standards, perhaps 5.5 feet tall. Her skin was a warm brown, her hair dark and pulled back in a simple tie. She wore the standard institute uniform, but something about the way she carried herself made Kol'thorian's predator recognition instincts, buried deep in his Valtorian hindbrain, twitch uncomfortably. "Dr. Kol'thorian," she said, her voice clear and steady. I have a correction to make. A correction? Kol'thorian's scales shifted to a lighter purple. Amusement. My dear student. I've been teaching this material for 4 decades. I hardly think the humans aren't extinct, she said simply. The lecture hall went silent. Kol'thorian blinked all 3 of his eyes in sequence. I beg your pardon? The humans. We're not extinct. She tilted her head slightly. I should know. I'm one. For a moment, Dr. Kol'thorian simply stared. Then he laughed. A resonant sound that his translator rendered as rich and patronizing. My dear, I think you're confused about your species classification. Perhaps you're Talvirian? They have a similar bipedal structure. Though of course they're far more. I'm human, the student interrupted. My name is Maya Okafor. I'm from Earth. Well, New Earth, technically. We moved after the incident. The lecture hall exploded into chaos. That's impossible, shrieked Illumines, its crystalline structure flashing red with alarm. The records clearly state, began a methodical Vex scholar. Is she serious? Demanded a Dracian. Dr. Kol'thorian raised his primary hand for silence. It took several moments for the students to settle. And even then, the air hummed with agitated whispers. Miss Okafor, was it? Kol'thorian's tone had shifted to the one he used for students who were clearly having some kind of episode. I understand that sometimes the scope of galactic history can be overwhelming. But I assure you, the humans are extinct. The records are quite clear. The records are wrong, Maya said. She hadn't sat back down. Or rather, they're incomplete. Incomplete, Kol'thorian repeated flatly. Yes. Maya reached into her satchel and pulled out a data tablet. Would you like me to explain what actually happened? Or would you prefer to continue teaching incorrect information? Several students gasped at the sheer audacity. One did not speak to Dr. Varnish Kol'thorian, head of the Galactic History Department, in such a manner. Kol'thorian's scales darkened to a deep indigo. The Valtorian equivalent of a warning coloration. Miss Okafor, I will overlook your insolence this once because you are clearly confused. However, I suggest you, Earth didn't go dark because we destroyed ourselves, Maya interrupted again. Earth went dark because the Council made it go dark. They cut off all our communications, jammed our transmissions, and told the rest of the galaxy we were dead. That's absurd, Kol'thorian snapped. The Council would never. The Council made a deal with us, Maya continued, her voice cutting through his protest with surprising force. They gave us a choice, either accept relocation and cultural integration under strict monitoring, or face preemptive sterilization. We chose relocation. The lecture hall had gone silent again. But this time the quality of the silence was different. Heavier. More dangerous. You're claiming, Kol'thorian said slowly, that the Council engaged in a cover-up of genocidal intent? I'm claiming the Council made a pragmatic decision, Maya corrected. They determined that humanity was too dangerous to leave unsupervised and too technologically advanced to simply eliminate without galactic consequences. So they made us disappear from the official records and relocated us to a quarantine sector. She tapped her tablet. And suddenly the main lecture display, which should have been under Kol'thorian's control only, flashed to life with new data. How did you? Kol'thorian began. I'm a human, Maya said with a slight smile. We're really good at bypassing security protocols. It's kind of our thing. The display now showed a document marked with the Council's highest classification seals. This, Maya said, is the Covenant of Meridian. signed 1851 years ago. It details the terms of humanity's extinction and our relocation to a quarantine zone designated Sector 7 null. In exchange for our cooperation, the Council agreed to provide us with resources, technology, and most importantly, education. She looked directly at Kol'thorian. That's why I'm here, Professor. I'm part of the reintegration program. A nephri near the back floated forward slightly. If this is true, why reveal it now? Why not continue the deception? Because the quarantine period ended 3 years ago, Maya said. Humanity's probationary status is officially over. The Council determined we've sufficiently integrated into galactic cultural norms and no longer pose a threat to stability. She paused. Well, not a significant threat, anyway. Kol'thorian felt something he hadn't experienced in decades, genuine uncertainty. This is Miss Okafor. These are extremely serious allegations. If you're fabricating, I'm not. Maya looked around at the assembled students. There are 47 humans currently enrolled at this institute. We've been here all along. You just didn't know what to look for. 47. A Dracian student turned to look at her neighbor. A quiet, unassuming bipedal who'd never spoken much in class. Marcus. Are you? The student. Marcus gave an apologetic shrug. Guilty. Human. Sorry for not mentioning it. Another student stood up 3 rows back. Hannah Zhang. Also human. Then another. David Okonkwo. Human. And another. Sarah Al-Mansuri. Human. Within 30 seconds, 47 students had identified themselves throughout the lecture hall. They'd been hiding in plain sight, so thoroughly unremarkable that no one had thought to question their species classification. Dr. Kol'thorian felt his 3 hearts beating in asynchronous rhythm. A Valtorian stress response. This is. I need to verify. Feel free, Maya said. She forwarded the document to his personal terminal. I have 14 other classified files I can share if you need additional proof, including the Council's psychological assessment reports on human integration progress. They make for interesting reading. Lots of words like persistent, adaptive, and concerningly creative. Kol'thorian pulled up the document on his private display, hidden from the student's view. His scales went through a rapid color shift as he read. Purple to white to pale green, before settling on a sickly yellow that indicated severe distress. It was real. All of it. Why? He asked finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Why allow me to teach this? Why let me tell the entire institute that your species was extinct? Maya's expression softened slightly. Because you weren't entirely wrong, Professor. Humanity as it existed 1847 years ago is extinct. We changed. We had to. The species you described in your lecture. The violent, unstable, self-destructive humans? They're gone. We're what came after. She walked down the steps toward the podium, and Kol'thorian found himself taking an involuntary step back. The Council was right to be afraid of us, Maya continued. Old humanity was terrifying. We invented weapons that could crack planets. We waged wars that lasted generations. We consumed our own world's resources so efficiently that we nearly made it uninhabitable. She stopped a few feet from him. But we also invented art, music, literature, philosophy. We created systems of justice, however imperfect. We developed empathy, compassion, and self-reflection. Then what changed? Asked the Dracian student from earlier, her voice hushed. Maya turned to address the class. We were forced to see ourselves through alien eyes. For the first time in our history, we had to confront what we looked like to someone else. Something else. And we didn't like what we saw. She pulled up another image on the display. A view of Earth from space. Blue and green and beautiful. The council gave us a choice, change or die. So we chose to change. We spent 1800 years in quarantine. Rebuilding our culture from the ground up. Learning from species who'd figured out how to live without destroying themselves. It wasn't easy. We had setbacks. Rebellions. But gradually, we became something different. Something better. Or something better at hiding what you are, Kol'thorian interjected, finding his voice again. You hacked my lecture display in seconds. You infiltrated this institute without detection. You've been deceiving us all for 3 years, Maya finished. And yes, we could have caused a lot of problems if we'd wanted to. We could have sabotaged systems, stolen research, caused diplomatic incidents. She smiled. But we didn't. Because we're not the species you described in your lecture anymore, Professor. We're the species that chose to be better. A long silence followed. Then a Vex scholar in the upper rows spoke up. Its mechanical voice flat and analytical. Hypothesis: if humans are as dangerous as the historical records suggest, and they have been present at this institute for 3 years without detection, then they could theoretically have compromised any number of systems or individuals. The fact that they have not done so is either evidence of genuine change or evidence of a long-term deception strategy. Both, Maya admitted freely. We could be playing a long game. That's always a possibility. But here's the thing about humans, Professor Kol'thorian, we're not very good at long-term deception. We're too emotional. Too impulsive. If we were planning something sinister, someone would have cracked by now and told their roommate. Who would have told their friend? Who would have told their professor? She gestured at the other humans scattered throughout the lecture hall. 47 of us. And we managed to keep the secret for 3 years. That's actually impressive by human standards. Usually we can't keep a surprise party secret for more than 3 days. A few nervous laughs rippled through the students, including from some of the humans. Kol'thorian slumped slightly, his rigid posture finally breaking. So what happens now? You've revealed yourselves. You've undermined my entire lecture. You've proven that the council engaged in a cover-up that I unknowingly perpetuated for decades. He looked at Maya with something between resentment and exhaustion. What exactly did you hope to accomplish, Miss Okafor? Maya's expression became serious. I hope to accomplish exactly this, Professor. A conversation. The quarantine is over. Humanity is officially rejoining the galactic community. But if we do it through formal diplomatic channels, big announcements, official ceremonies, it's going to cause panic. Species are going to remember the old stories and assume we're still that violent, unstable race. She gestured around the lecture hall. But if we do it like this? If we've been here all along, living alongside you, studying with you, and nothing bad has happened? Then maybe, just maybe, the reintegration goes more smoothly. That's manipulation, Kol'thorian said. That's psychology, Maya corrected. And politics. And yes, maybe a little manipulation. But it's manipulation in service of peace, Professor. We don't want to scare anyone. We just want to exist. The Dracian student who'd been asking questions raised a tentacle hesitantly. Marcus. We've been lab partners for 2 semesters. Were you studying me? Reporting on me? Marcus turned in his seat to face her. No, Scylla. I was just trying to pass advanced xenobiology like everyone else. I'm actually really bad at it. If you remember. You've been tutoring me. Oh. Scylla's tentacles relaxed slightly. Right. You did fail that test on Nepheri respiration systems. Spectacularly, Marcus agreed. The tension in the room eased incrementally. Dr. Kol'thorian looked at the document still displayed on his private terminal. Then at Maya. Then at the 47 humans scattered throughout his lecture hall. Students he'd taught. Graded. Occasionally praised for insightful observations. You said I learned why contradicting you was a mistake, Kol'thorian said slowly. But I don't feel threatened, Miss Okafor. Should I? Maya shook her head. No, Professor. The mistake wasn't that you might face consequences from us. The mistake was that you've been teaching incomplete history. And as a scholar, isn't that the worst kind of mistake you can make? Kol'thorian's scales shifted through several colors before settling on a deep, contemplative violet. Yes, he admitted finally. Yes, it is. He looked up at the assembled class. It appears I owe you all an apology. And a significantly revised lecture series. Maya smiled. A genuine, warm expression that made her look even younger than her probable age. I'd be happy to help with that, Professor. I have access to the complete historical records now. The real ones. Including humanity's actual history during the quarantine period? All 1800 years of it. The good, the bad, and the embarrassing. Kol'thorian considered this. Then, despite everything, he felt his scales lighten to an almost amused lavender. Miss Okafor, would you be interested in a teaching assistant position? I suspect I'm going to need help navigating these revelations. I'd be honored, Professor. The lecture hall erupted in conversation again. But this time it was less panicked and more excited. Students clustered around the humans. Asking questions. Comparing notes. Expressing shock that they'd never noticed. Dr. Kol'thorian watched it all with mixed feelings. His expertise had been undermined. His life's work had been revealed as incomplete at best. Propaganda at worst. He should have been furious. Instead, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years, the thrill of discovering something genuinely new. Miss Okafor, he called out as Maya turned to leave the podium. She looked back. One more question. The survey team that found Earth dead 1600 years ago. They reported atmospheric collapse. Nuclear winter. If humanity was already relocated, what did they actually find? Maya's smile took on a slightly mischievous quality. A very convincing stage dressing, she said. Turns out humans are really good at special effects. We had 200 years to prepare that particular scene. We wanted it to look really convincing. You faked the death of your entire homeworld. The council helped. They wanted it to be believable too. Kol'thorian shook his head in disbelief. Unbelievable. Actually, Professor. It was extremely believable. You believed it for 43 cycles. And with that, Maya Okafor, human, student, and living proof that history was never as simple as it seemed, walked back to her seat. Dr. Kol'thorian stood at his podium for a long moment, watching his students debate and discuss and gradually come to terms with the revelation that one of the galaxy's greatest mysteries had just been solved in the middle of a routine lecture. Then he pulled up his curriculum files and began the long, arduous process of rewriting 4 decades of material. He had a feeling it was going to be the most interesting work of his career. 3 months later, the revised Galactic History course. now co-taught by Dr. Varnish Kol'thorian and teaching assistant Maya Okafor, became the most popular class at the Meridian Institute. Enrollment tripled. Students waited on lists for cycles just to get in. The lecture on the erasure, what actually happened, became required viewing for all incoming council diplomats. And Dr. Kol'thorian, for all his initial resistance, found that having his life's work dismantled and rebuilt was strangely liberating. "You know," he said to Maya one evening as they prepared materials for the next day's lecture, "I think I understand now why the council was so afraid of you. Because we're violent and unpredictable?" "No." Kol'thorian's scales rippled with something like respect. "Because you're adaptable. You can become whatever you need to become to survive. That's far more terrifying than simple violence." Maya considered this. "Is that a compliment or a warning, Professor?" "Both," Kol'thorian said. "Definitely both." And somewhere in the Council's diplomatic archives, a file marked Humanity, Reintegration Status, was updated from probationary to cleared. Just beneath it, in much smaller text, a note was added: "Continue monitoring. Just in case." Because some lessons, once learned, were never truly forgotten.